Last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this Earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.
Broadcasting live
from a tiny studio somewhere in North America.
This is Dark Matters Radio Live. And now I give you your host,
the silverback of ufology.
Here's Don Ecker.
And hey, Dark Matters Radio family, welcome back to a brand new show right here on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Today, I don't know if you're aware of it, probably you are, but is a very important date, November the 10th. Two primary things are going on. Of course, this is the anniversary of the tragic sinking of the freighter, the Edmund Fitzgerald. Anybody that is aware of Gordon Lightfoot did a beautiful, beautiful rendition song about the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald that came out in the 70s, latter 70s. And it was genuinely, the first time I ever heard that song, I got to tell you, the hair on my neck stood up. It really deeply affected me. And also today, November the 10th, is the 250th birthday of the United States Marine Corps. And to all Marines out there, both former Marines and once a Marine, always a Marine, but former active duty and current active duty, a heartfelt happy birthday from Army right here. Now, tomorrow, of course, Veterans Day. And how many of you know exactly what Veterans Day signifies? It was November the 11th, 1918, World War I. At the 11th hour, the 11th minute, hostilities ceased. Several years later, that was codified into Veterans Day, celebrated all throughout the United States. And I don't know about you, but when that date rolls around, my head goes to many, many places. My grandfather, a 2 World War veteran, my father, a World War II veteran, and then Korea. All my uncles served, most of them in World War II. That was, all hands on deck kind of thing when that went down. But the men and the women that are here today that have survived whatever service they had to perform, at one point in their lives, signed a check to the United States government, to and including their life, if need be. And today, of course, we don't have a military draft anymore. That ceased back in 1972. But today it's an all-volunteer force. But those men and women that put on a uniform Do it for your sake, for you and everything you believe in. The liberties and the freedoms we enjoy today is strictly written and signed by the armed forces of the United States. Lawyers, government, everything else, bullshit. It's the military that ultimately makes it all possible. And with that being said, tonight we're going to take a look at several things. Number one, we're going to get Mark Dantonio. I called him up this past weekend, invited him back on. It's always a trip when Mark comes on because he is so chock full of good information. We're going to be talking about the latest developments, what, if any, of 3-Eye Atlas. We'll find out an approximate date when the alien invasion will begin next month, probably in December. Just kidding, I hope. And also, something else we're going to hit tonight, and it was brought to me courtesy of my buddy and co-host, Mark Center, about Voyager, the Voyager spacecraft that was launched in 1977 with software and computer stuff that would literally cause you to break down in loud laughter. It is, by today's standards, so incredibly primitive. But guess what? It still works. It's still out there generating data, sending it back to Earth, and it just recently made a mind-blowing discovery, which we're going to be talking about that. So without any further ado, let me bring on Mark Center, Gary Kissel, who's here, and our guest, Mr. Mark Dantonio. Mark, welcome back to the show, my friend. How you doing?
Good. And let me ask you a question. What does this mean to you? Dr. Livingstone, I presume.
Yes, Stanley and Livingstone.
Yes. Well, today in history is when Dr. Morgan Stanley found Dr. Livingstone at Lake Tanganyika in Africa.
Really?
So the phrase
November 10th.
Dr. Livingstone, I presume, was today in history.
Wow.
That's pretty cool, huh?
That is cool.
I didn't think about the Marine Corps. I didn't think about anything else. I didn't think about, the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald, the Mighty Fitz. Okay. But I did think about Dr. Livingston. That's the head that's not, screwed on quite right.
Hey, by the way,
yeah,
that light behind you makes you look like a parakeet. Your hair is blue.
Oh yeah, you're right. Well, that's the light overhead.
That or a really angry old lady.
I worked with someone that had blue hair, and every time she walked in, I was in a restaurant. I was a line cook in a restaurant for a year and a half, and one of the waitresses had blue hair, and she was a crotchety old lady back then, and we would always make fun of her blue hair. Not nice, but then again, she said, "It didn't dye right. Leave me alone." But she goes out in public like that. It's like, oh, okay. But it was, you heard about blue-haired old ladies. She had blue hair.
Oh, yeah.
So she tried it again, and guess what it was next time? It wasn't brown like she was aiming. It was green.
Oh, God.
Yeah, green hair. That was worse. Poor lady. Anyway, this is good to be back. It's good to see you guys. Don, Mark, and Gary. It's good to see you guys. Whatever I can do to help you tonight, I'll be happy to. I promised you a photo of 3-Eye Atlas. It's in range of our telescopes. The only problem is tomorrow is the day when we can actually start imaging it without the sun getting in the way, because it comes up pre-dawn. So I was up really early this morning and I went looking for it in the sky. I found it. The only problem was there was a lot of sunlight and glare of the rising sun. So we have to let it go a little longer. And tomorrow is the day when we can start doing that. So I was off by a day, Don. I'm sorry.
Hey, it is what it is. Do you have a projected date for when the alien invasion begins?
Oh, I know exactly what it's going to be because I talked to them. No.
Okay.
They're in my head. No. First of all, it's rather silly of you to say when it's going to begin. Where you been?
Yeah, exactly.
It's ongoing, buddy. You know what? There's a whole bunch of things. I never believed in panspermia in the beginning because I never thought, panspermia is the spread of life throughout the universe through extraterrestrial beings and life on Earth founded by something striking the Earth that had life in it to begin with, or aliens seeding life. Well, I was never a huge fan of that. And I have this talk that I do, and it's called The Toilet Paper History of the Earth. You may have seen it. And as I put all the main evolutionary and developmental findings in the fossil record, everything on sheets of toilet paper, it's a 300-foot long thing. And actually, no, it's 117 feet long, 300 sheets. Okay, now why am I saying this? Because every so often there is writing which says what happened here. Okay, this is when the first plants showed up. Then a few million years later, that's when those plants developed flowers so that the pollinators, which came before them, could take advantage of them. All these interesting little things. For instance, well, anywhere along that sequence, as I looked at it and done this thing probably 100 times, all right, everywhere along that sequence is when aliens could have visited us. Because we had an oxygen atmosphere starting 2.5 billion years ago, and we're carbon-based. And so all creatures in the universe are probably carbon-based. I'm a bigot about carbon. I'm sorry. So, right. So if you think about it, doesn't that make sense? So now, we have the potential that they've kind of been coming here all along, and maybe they have generational visitation to our planet, and probably because of the oxygen in our atmosphere, meaning it's being replenished by something. That something is life. And so they probably been showing up on a regular basis. So I've come to think that maybe there is something to the concept of panspermia. Maybe they helped us along at some point when we were just sludge. Maybe there really is a Q.
Well, I got a question. Now, in these lectures that you give, where you utilize the toilet roll, I'm presuming you unroll it to read the various notations, what have you on it, right? And that's how big? 175 feet?
117 feet long. So I go out in the audience. 117. I go out in the audience. I toilet paper the audience every time I go out. I do it.
I just got one question.
Here it comes.
Who rolls the toilet paper back up?
Aha! What a good question. Well, let me tell you. First of all, most of the people like this. It's one of the favorites, okay? So what happens is many times they will be rolling it up for me before I'm even finished talking. They've finished rolling it for me, and I'll start rolling it, and I'll spool it on. I'll just roll the spool, and they're just walking toward me with it. It's just really nice how they do that. It's all a community effort. I mean, they like it. And I tell them, I pull it out of the bag. I say, well, I'm using this highly technical piece of apparatus to show you the evolution of life on Earth. And here it is. And I show this roll of toilet paper. And I said, now, this has been used a lot. People are cool. Not that way. Anyway, so people, it's a really interesting perspective, because when you look at this 117-foot long roll that's had many blank sheets all along the way, every sheet is 14 million years, and you've got like 20 sheets of nothing happening, supposedly. But there's a tremendous development going on in there that started at this particular sheet and goes 20 more sheets until we have all the oxygen, for instance. And people find out that dinosaurs died about 12 inches ago on that sheet.
Really?
And they say, that's recent history. And the answer is, yes, it is. And they see also how life began to explode as we get nearer the where we are in the room today, because it goes right to where we are in the room. And by the time we reach the room today, there's an explosion of life that occurs in the last 15 inches of that roll, and I could break each of those sheets down into its own toilet paper roll of developments that happened in there. It's just,
in all that time, we have had if I'm not mistaken, and I'm sure you'll correct me if I am, but 5 major extinction events.
Yep, that's correct. Now,
okay,
three of those were what we call biodiversity failures, where you know how when you have an ancient ancestor, we had Lucy, right? Australopithecus afarensis in Africa, right? Lucy, little 4-foot tall, diminutive creature. And then there's a radiative adaptation, a lot of spokes of the wheel, all different species that radiated from one common ancestor. So if that slows down for some reason due to environmental pressures or change in climate, and that those spokes get narrower and you only get a few branches, then that accounts for one of those extinction events. And it's not, 100% of life, 96% of life. That's only happened once. All right. And that was in the Permian period, 252 million years ago. I don't think any of you were there at that time. But it was a major volcanic eruption, and that knocked out 96% of life. Now, back then, life was in the oceans, right? So in the oceans, when the oceans got hotter, this volcanic eruptions threw so much carbon dioxide in the order of many billions of tons. How much does a ton of carbon dioxide weigh?
That's a ton.
Yeah, right. But how big is the volume? It's huge because you're weighing individual molecules of CO2. So to reach a ton, imagine billions of those going into the atmosphere, right? So that raised the temperature in the oceans by 21 degrees in just a few short weeks over long. So what does that mean? It means that the oxygen couldn't stay in the water. Creatures that breathed oxygen died, and we had a 96% extinction rate at that time. And the only creatures that could handle it were the creatures that would then become reptiles and dinosaurs, and that's when the age of the dinosaurs began.
Well, let me ask you, because just this past weekend, I watched a reel on the internet, on Facebook, that proposed that planet Earth at one point, one of those extinction events may have been a gamma ray burst that impacted the planet.
Yep.
Do you give any credence to that?
Oh, sure. That's the thing. We have to remember our planet has gone around the center of the galaxy in an orbit for the whole time we've existed. And since 4.6 billion years ago, we've gone around almost 20 times. Okay. So that means stars have passed us. Other things have gone by us. We've passed by very busy areas in our Milky Way where stars are forming. And certainly we may have passed an area where there was a supernova or a gamma ray burst or a black hole merger or something. And we got hit with some gamma rays. And there's a possibility that happened. It can't be really shown in the fossil record, too easily. It's inferred. It's inferred from the fossils. And so
radiation.
Yeah, no, the gamma rays, okay, wouldn't leave. They would leave traces by looking at the dead creatures, okay, that may have been affected by it, and plants might have been affected by it, but that's subtle because we're getting, the plants and everything and the animals are getting hit by radiation from what then was a younger sun by a few million years, right? Or even a billion years or two. And so that radiation may have been similar to the gamma radiation coming from these other locations. So the results might be the same, different source.
You think any of those results became like Bruce Banner, the Hulk?
I think that the Hulk was around back
I'm
just
gonna
before
look
the
at
dinosaurs
you
died.
You're looking at me and I'm looking at you.
You're looking the wrong way, dude.
Not on my screen.
Oh, really? Yeah, no, it's like the Brady Bunch.
I'll look at you.
There you go. That's right. You know what? I should hand you something and have you. If you had a water bottle and you just took it and then I came back like this.
He does have a water bottle.
Ready? Do it again. Do it again.
All right, ready? All right, here you go. This is for you now. Here, take that. There you go.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate
it. Yeah, we could get really good at that, and then you do that the whole show.
I can freak people out.
And you don't mention it. You just do it. And you just say, "Oh, I'm thirsty. Oh, you need a drink? Here, have it here. Here, take this, Jerry. Here, Gary. Here you go. Here you go." And you take a water bottle, right? Yeah.
Thanks, man.
And then we just carry on like it's nothing. And and then you have people in the chat going, "What was that?
What was that?" Yeah, just signal me in the back of the chat. Hey, I'm going to do the bottle thing.
So the reason that I sent out the Voyager thing, not only is it interesting, and the billions of miles and all that, is that because I go deep and hard into the paint of flat Earth, and we never went to the moon, I looked at the technology that they were using, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at that going, well, wait a minute. This thing was 1977, a decade after.
Yeah.
And it's still out there working. And it wouldn't even be, it's I don't know, it's like a wristwatch, right? So it got me thinking about that. Like all of these people who say we didn't have the technology and look what we had and blah, blah, blah for the moon thing. Well, look at this. 1977, and it's still working on. Basically, they say that the memory was enough to have one kilobytes. JPEG image.
A few kilobytes, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the gift that keeps giving. Okay, Voyager is phenomenal because it found this very high temperature region. Now I gotta explain. We use a different scale in astronomy. It's called the Kelvin scale. It's not degrees Kelvin. That's like saying degrees. Okay, it's Kelvin. That's the scale, and Kelvin is sort of close to Celsius. So if you say 30,000 Kelvin or 50,000 Kelvin, it means that you're looking at roughly, say, just about 50,000 and a little bit more centigrade Celsius, right? So, but Fahrenheit's different. That's a whole nother conversion because we're stupid and we never thought about using base 10. Go figure. So, but that 50,000 Kelvin wall, the very high temperature wall outside of our solar system, and it's at a place called the heliopause, which I think you've talked about, Mark, very well. And that's the heliopause is where the sun's influence ends and the interstellar influence begins in such a way that it's greater than the solar influence. So what are we talking about with this temperature thing, and what's that mean? Well, here's what happens when there's a supernova. When there's a supernova, hot gas is pushed out from the remains of the star, and as it moves out, it compresses other gas along its way. Okay, and when it does so, it heats it up, sometimes to 1,000,000 degrees. All right, as it goes, and that will ionize the gas and make it glow. Just last night I took pictures of a beautiful nebula doing its filamentary structures, and it's exactly that. It's got blue from oxygen that's been ionized and red from hydrogen. Well, anyway, outside our heliopause, the sun has had a very powerful solar wind pushing outward. Outside that heliopause, though, we have other stellar winds coming in from other stars, and it's going up against the sun's stellar wind, and it's compressing and pushing that wind. Our wind is pushing it, and it's pushing us, and in that interface, it's very hot, and that's what Voyager detected is a 30 to 50,000 Kelvin temperature barrier. Now they call it the wall of fire, right? It's kind of cool. It kind of reminds me of Johnny Cash, Yeah, I won't sing it, but it's a great song. So
if we had a vessel, a ship, capable of getting out there, how would that affect the ship if it flew through that area?
Ask Voyager, it did it. It was fine.
Yeah,
now, how come?
Fine.
Why is that?
Because of the space of space.
Yes, exactly. It's because of the density, Don, of that area. It's not like it's a packed area like inside an oven. The molecules are so far apart, all right, that the compression is still occurring. And at a molecular level, that compression occurs, and the gas particles and the dust particles that are also being compressed will heat up. But it's a very low density area, so we could fly right through it, and the skin of our ship might increase in temperature, but it's not going to immediately vaporize us, So that's, if we got too close to the sun where the density increases and increases and increases, well, yes, right. But we got the solar, the Parker Solar Probe, which is actually flying through the 1,000,000-degree corona of the sun. And it's still fine. And the reason is because the corona, those particles are separated by a significant distance, far enough apart so that it won't fry the Parker Solar Probe. So this is the kind of thing that happens. It's like saying, when we look at Saturn, we look at Saturn's rings. We say, well, it's almost rigid. It's almost like a record. Right. You can walk on it. But the particles are so far apart in Saturn's rings. The universe is big. Okay. The particles are so far apart in the rings that we flew Cassini through it a couple times. The Saturn probe Cassini, and it never hit a thing. In fact, it was flown through the rings, and the astronomers knew it wouldn't hit anything. The chances were diminutive that it would actually strike anything on its way through. So that's really kind of cool, So I look at it and think of it that way. Okay, the universe has got lots of space, just like you said. You're absolutely right about that. And that's the reason why the Voyager is still here. It's not singed, okay, but it can detect energetic particles that you can translate to having absorbed a certain amount. See, things only absorb or emit radiation in space. There's no temperature in between particles. It's not defined. You need pressure for temperature. Okay. So you have a particle that absorbs some energy that's coming in from this compression. And if that particle is passed by the Voyager, and many particles are passed by Voyager, it'll detect an average temperature increase. And they detected 30 to 50,000 Kelvin temperature increase at that interface where the outer part of the heliopause, the boundary of the sun and our solar system, was striking the heliopause, and they were pushing against each other, causing this barrier.
So I want to ask you about the barrier. I sent an email to all you guys with an image, and Skywatcher's got it if he can throw it up there. As a diver from the 70s on, when oceans meet, right, you can have a blue ocean and a dark ocean. And I looked at that and I said, this is similar but different to what you're talking about. So while that may be in heat of the different oceans, debris of the different oceans, or whatever, what causes that division line to build up the Kelvin of the sun that's going out there, and it can't go any further?
Well, it's going further, but it's compressing other stuff, and compression of incoming gas and so forth is what heats it up. Okay, you have to remember the sun is putting a spherical radiating wave of radiation out constantly, and it's certainly making its way past the heliopause, but just not at the volume and intensity that it does within the heliopause. So once it gets to the heliopause, it's like the Kármán line, right? When we talk about getting to orbit, okay, we know that the atmosphere gently gives away until we get to space. But where do we call it space? Well, we have this line we call the Kármán line, the von Kármán line. So, okay, above that, it's space. Okay. Well, similarly, it's a heliopause thing. As we get up a little higher, okay, and a little farther away from our sun, we reach the point where we can say that the forces of the solar wind pushing out are balanced by the extraterrestrial objects all pushing on our solar system from all around it. And that becomes the heliopause. The sun is no longer influencing what's beyond that, but it can interact with it. So if it interacts with something coming in, like the pressure from a star's stellar wind from a few light years away hits the heliopause, that arbitrary boundary, the sun is pushing this way, and this is pushing this way. It's going to heat up as it pushes against the other, and that's what causes the heating, is the compression. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah, that's a cool. I've seen a photo like that for real, and it looked like somebody forgot to put the decal on that side of the globe.
Right. That's what popped into my brain, was like, not that that's happening, but you get my drift.
Yeah, actually, that picture is really cool, and thank you, Bill, for putting that up. I tell you why, because that picture also illustrates, in part, why Jupiter can look the way it does, with all the swirling colors that seem to be right next to each other, and they seem to swirl around each other. The Juno probe shows these very, very tight swirls of blue stuff at the poles, and there's white storms, and there's a cyclonic activity, and you see all these subtle colors that don't seem to mix. And just like we see there in that photo, we see that we have the blue ocean and the brown ocean. And that has to do with the sediments, the temperature, and the currents exactly, you know. And so if you look at that, if we got close to Jupiter's cloud tops, we might see something like that. You know what I mean? So it's the mixing doesn't occur in the same way because it's different materials. Okay, in the water's case, it may have different particles in it, might have some sediments and particulates in the water, whatever. But in Jupiter, it's different compounds. All right, so it's a little different, but the notion is the same, isn't it?
So there was a question about the Voyager, and
that's from Rickley Gaines' Voyager in the chat.
Right.
And I told the guys to tag me if they had questions.
Right, and it has to do with the plaque on the Voyager. And for some reason in my head, I had it that Hoagland had something to do with that. And it turns out that the Voyager spacecraft don't carry a record that maybe he was that involved with. Don might remember that better than me. But...
Well, he had some to do with it.
Okay.
But like many things, sometimes claims get maybe a little inflated. You never know, you know.
Right. Yeah, and I do remember that I think he was like in the room while it was being discussed or something like that with Walter Cronkite, no doubt. So
this is Walter Cronkite.
And I don't want to correct you, Mark, but it's not Voyager, it's Voyager. Come on.
I said Voyager. I said Voyager when you were talking, Mark. I said Voyager, and I guess nobody heard me. Yeah, I
didn't hear you. I didn't. I would have laughed at it if I'd heard that.
Look, a bowling ball was rolling across the railing and said, "Can Princess Aaliyah come out and play?"
So, your view on this from the Japanese Space Agency.
Yeah.
And they say it's created with spectrum and imaging data, so it must be true.
It's all real. I'm just a big cover for the aliens. You've heard of Men in Black? Well, you know, that movie's all real.
Let's
Aren't we all going to be embarrassed if this thing makes a sharp angled turn and flies in toward Earth? Oh, yeah. That'll be great.
Yeah, but I don't think we'll get a sharp angled turn because when it passes us in December, it's going to keep right on going. It's moving too fast to make a sharp turn unless it's using technology we don't understand. And it has a tail.
They're inertial dampeners, Mark.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Nice. Big words. Nice.
Thank you, Gene Roddenberry.
Somebody watched a lot of Star Trek. That's right.
Now,
thank you, Gene.
now it's in the New York Post, so it must be true. They say that there's a set of jets surrounding the 3i Atlas that could be used for navigation of a spacecraft. That's what they say.
Now, let me just finish out a point.
Okay. All right.
The Voyager record. Okay, I was going to say this before.
Yes.
It was actually championed by Carl Sagan.
Yeah. Okay? True.
Yeah. So he's the guy that actually championed this, and the record is like a laser disc. Probably can't play it anymore. And
I could. I've got 2 players and 400 discs, but that's another story.
Well, you might have a Pioneer. Was it VP 1000 or whatever it is?
Yes, I got a very expensive one.
It's a big platter. Anyway, but it has Sounds of Earth on it. Everything from running water to
Chuck
animals, to Chuck Berry, and to kids playing and laughing.
Send more Chuck Berry.
Yes, please.
And every now and then in the background you hear dink, dink, dink because we got cowbell too.
Nice. More cowbell.
More cowbell.
Yeah. Now here, okay. So the record was actually created by Frank Drake, astronomer.
The
Carl
Drake's
Sagan.
Equation.
Yeah, Carl Sagan ran point. Okay, Frank Drake. And then we had
Drake put a lot more into it than anybody else, right?
I think this was
because he's gay.
I don't know. I know that Carl Sagan was sort of like the head of the project lead. And then we had Andrian, was it? Is that John Lomberg, Timothy Ferris, who did beautiful books on galaxies. With Carl Sagan kind of in there as in the mix, they probably all had equal input, but they figured out what to do. Anne was the creative director, so she did a lot on this thing, and it was a really interesting album. I think it would be boring if we played it today, because it's like, these just kids laughing, and now we hear running water. What's going on, right? Well, to an alien, it might be a little different. And of course, the symbols show where we come from in the solar system, and is the images of man and woman, okay, which is interesting because it shows a bipedal being, which any being out there, if they evolve the way we evolved here, you could imagine that they would evolve into bipedal, walking on two legs upright, okay?
Right.
Because it's something that might be evolutionarily selected for continuance, because it allows such advantage. Higher you are, the farther you can see threats. Simple. If you're slithering on the ground, you can't see that threat from 10 feet away. If you're standing up, you can see it a mile away. So you'd be able to continue, and you'd survive a lot longer, right? So it's actually a very interesting record. I thought I never got to actually hear the record, because you could get the recording of it. It may still be out there.
Yeah, I think so. Now, when Jagari was in the green room, he said we should have sent a shake weight.
Oh man, you guys are going downhill. What am I doing here? You know what? Let me. I'm walking off the set.
Now let's go back to the Japanese thing, and the reason that I don't believe that, but how much truth is there to the rumor that they did take photos of it and they're refusing to release them?
That was China, supposedly.
Well, China's hiding everything. Okay. But here's the thing. Nobody could take photos of it because it was behind the sun. Duh. Okay. And only starting tomorrow is it going to be far enough away from behind the sun so we can actually start to image it in earnest again. And the images that have been done while it was behind the sun were not done with any Earth-based telescope. It was done with space-based telescopes. So
that's Veterans Day. Coincidence? I don't think so.
I think not. Da, 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 da. Yeah. So, any photos taken of it were done from space-based platforms. And it is interesting. We noticed that, that it did seem to get brighter as it went behind the sun. Duh, comets do.
Sped up. It's sped up.
As you expected to. Yeah.
Because it's being pushed, right?
Well, no, it's being pulled by the gravity of the sun. Okay, and it's pulling it around. Okay, whipping around. Now it does have these jets of stuff coming off of it that you mentioned, but these jets are common in comets. In fact, the fact that they have these jets is what makes them comets, aside from their tails and so forth, which are made by these jets. These jets send off all this dust and material that leaves a wake. Remember the Peanuts cartoon with Pigpen?
Yes.
As he's walking, he leaves dust behind him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Clouds of dust.
Yes. Pigpen is a comet. Okay. That's what a comet does. So that's the analogy I use with kids and with other people when I talk about comets. It's Pigpen leaving a dust cloud behind him. And that dust cloud just sits there and keeps, because it has nowhere to go in space. So it just keeps going and going and going.
Well, I'll tell you, Mark, the one thing, though, that I really find unusual, is the fact that it has such a high concentration of nickel and almost no iron. Actually, is highly unusual.
It is.
I said almost.
Yeah, and you've got good cover, okay, because that's changed. And the reason that it's changed is because I think, and I said this, some weeks ago, nickel, all right, one of the things that's on this comet is carbon monoxide. That's a carbon atom with an oxygen atom. So CO, stuff we want to avoid, right? Not good for us. There's also cyanide. Let's not go here, okay? All right. And that makes it green. The carbon compounds make it green. There's water ice, carbon dioxide ice. All right, so there's a lot of all this stuff. So there's a lot of carbon monoxide, CO. Now, one thing about the nickel atom is it can bond with 4 carbon monoxide groups. CO is a group. So you have CO, 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 CO. And you have a nickel atom in the middle. Okay, that's called nickel carbonyl, CARBONYL, carbonyl. Okay, well, that vaporizes at about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, and that releases the nickel atom. So if it was nickel carbonyl on this comet, we would see the nickel first. Okay, Mark, what about the iron? You're right. Where's the iron? Well, the iron, being that there's a lot of carbon monoxide, could also be bound to 5 carbon monoxide groups. So 5 COs. And that's iron pentacarbonyl. And iron pentacarbonyl vaporizes at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. So that means we'd see nickel first and then slowly start to see iron showing up. And that's exactly what's happened. See, and you're not going to, if you look it up on, go to any place, look it up, look about the content of iron in
Pornhub.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it'll be there. I don't think it'll be there.
Porn?
You could, no, it's probably not there. You guys can try if you want. I'll talk to
Gary's
Gary.
bedroom.
Yeah, hold on.
We'll talk to him. I'll talk to him while you guys go check it out.
So
I have trouble sitting down again.
So if let's talk about these again. These are all rumors, but let's talk about nickel as a proper and useful type of a element to put around a spacecraft.
Okay.
And what my research has told me is that pretty heavy to sheave something that big.
Heavier
Which
than iron.
I still don't know if we have a mass on this thing, but it's giant. So we sheathe it in nickel. Would that be a good usage of nickel for a spacecraft?
Well, if it was, why is it shedding its outer layers? That's a big problem.
Because it's old.
Yeah, okay. It actually, think about this. When it started its journey, it looks like it was 7 billion years old by the time it got here. So that was, we've only been here 4.6 billion years. So when it showed up here, we weren't even in this region of space when it started its journey. So it wasn't purposefully sent because it's coming on a certain track and is making its way through our solar system now that it's here. Remember, 20 times around the galaxy since we've existed. Okay, where was it? It was doing its thing, whatever it was, and then finally just happens to coincidentally feel the gravity well of our sun and pull in. Now, here's what I do find interesting about this thing, and I still do. This thing is it entered our solar system and went by Mars. Okay, it was several million 18 million miles from Mars, something like that. Yeah. And then it continued around the sun, passing Venus. Okay, and then it's going to continue on to pass near Jupiter. Okay, so the question becomes, what's the chances that a random orbit of an interstellar object would take that path? And that is really quite small. We're talking about a 0.005% chance
why
of this trajectory.
Is it small that, much like throwing a baseball or something like that, or a dart at a target, why is it so small that it would take that?
Because a target is a certain diameter, and the dart is pretty big compared to the target. So if you take this tiny, tiny object coming in to our solar system, and you take the planets, which are so far apart, and you look at the vast distance between its orbital rendezvous, okay, then you can see that this object would be coming into the solar system and by chance passing Mars, only 60 million miles away or whatever. Venus, 18 million, I think it's the other way around, whatever, I think it was. And then going by Jupiter several million miles away. The chances of it doing that are the slim part because it's a huge solar system. Don't forget, it took us 10 years, over 10 years, to get to Pluto from here. Mm-hmm. So it's quite a big solar system. The planets are spread way out. You don't just hop on to go to Mars and say, hey, Jupiter's next. Let's just go there. You're going to be hundreds of years flying to Jupiter with a manned spaceship. Okay, if you're in Mars and it's on the other side of the sun, it's going to be a while before you get
only
there.
If we're using chemical rockets.
That's correct. And chemical
now,
rockets.
If we come up with a new form of propulsion, and I don't discount the fact that we may have a highly compartmentalized black program. And Mark, you know those things operate. You know there are such things. Now, I'm not saying there is.
This guy or me?
You.
Well, we know that he's
Mark Dantonio.
Oh, that's me. Yeah. Okay. Yes. I do know that there's black projects. Obviously, you guys know my past. You know that what I've done in the past a little bit. I haven't told you what I've done with certain things because I couldn't, but I know that, I do have that. All goes blank. Hey, he's been taken off the air. No, but you're right. There are some projects out there that we don't know about. Absolutely. And you're absolutely right, Don. The second favorite talk that people like is the interdimensional travel talk that I do. And that's the one where I talk about people being able to eventually go from here to Pluto in like 3 minutes, go to here at Alpha Centauri in 20 minutes, not 10,000 years like it currently takes us. And that process requires our understanding of more dimensions than X, Y, and Z moving through time. And right now, it looks like that's something that we're working on. At CERN, they're looking for these particles that would allow this kind of travel. They're called Kaluza-Klein particles. And they made a detector just to look for these particles at CERN. And why would they do that? Why are they looking for these KK particles, as they're called? Because they're very, very interesting. Okay? They do a lot of other things besides just exist. They have other consequential actions that they impart on the creator, if it's a ship, of these particles. It would allow you to go out of your 4 dimensions and go into a 5th dimension. And in that 5th dimension, you have no light speed barrier. In fact, the universe is compressed around you the farther in you go. And so you can punch out of that location. Like he's sitting right there in that chair. Okay, you're sitting right in that chair. If you decided to surround yourself with these particles, you would literally be gone to our eyes. You'd disappear. And you'd really be gone. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? I don't know. I think he got stolen by aliens. I don't know. Okay. But you'd literally be gone. And you'd be in the 5th dimension. And you could then make a new entry point at another X, Y, and Z coordinate, say 50 feet away from where you were. And you would just appear there. And from where you're sitting now to 50 feet away, you would not have traversed the distance between that chair and your new location. You would have disappeared from this one and reappeared over at this one.
The Philadelphia experiment.
I know that people confuse it with that, and you're right. But it's not quite the same thing. We hear about teleportation, transporters in Star Trek. Energize, Mr. Scott. We heard of all that. Okay. The trouble is, this is a very different thing. And the visual effects you would get to your eye of watching some UFO use this technology is that it would shimmer. It would seem to change color. It would outright vanish. It can make right angle turns in the sky at high speeds. And we would say, wow, no beings could survive that. No humans could. Yeah, that's true. And neither could they. Okay. Because they're not actually doing that. They're just popping in to new discrete points along their path. And if it goes from here to here to here to here, and then to here, to our sensors, it'd be going, it looked like it's making that turn, but it's not. They're just seeing this. They're feeling nothing. They feel like everybody listening to this show right now.
Right.
Perfectly still.
Like a flat earth. Yeah.
Yeah. No, not at all like a flat earth. So, I mean, it really comes down to the fact that when we look at the different possibilities of transportation, there's a few things that this particular approach would afford, and that is we don't need engines. We don't need engines. We don't need thrusters, because all we want to do if we want to move from point A to point B without going from A to B through all the points from A to B, we just disappear from A and appear at B. So it means we have to have a means of creating particles to pull us out and then having a way to punch ourselves in over here. So that's the whole idea, going from A to B like that.
And that would completely negate the limitation of light speed?
Yes, because the only reason we have light speed is because we're doing everything from within our 4 dimensions. You go into the 5th dimension, and you can punch back in at any point you want. And there is no such thing as light speed anymore. You are just different points. If you're an extraterrestrial traveler, you'd be one of the best cartographers in the universe because you would know every entry point. I don't want to reappear inside that star. No, that would be bad, right? But you know that you have all these exit points and entry points. And when you go into the 5th dimension, it's highly warped. So the farther in you go, the farther you can jump. Example, you go into this 5th dimension, okay? And you travel within the 5th dimension, you travel 12 inches. You go in, say, a quarter of the way. When you come out, that 12 inches is a lot of distance inside that compressed universe that you've covered. So when you come out, suddenly you've translated to that full distance, which could be from here to Pluto, or from here to Saturn. So it's really traveling in the compressed universe when you're in this 5th dimension. When you come out, you're at that new location because the 4th dimension is a mirror of the universe that's in the 5th dimension. You find a new entry point and you come in.
Okay, let's say for the sake of this discussion,
yes,
that tomorrow we find out that the secret government has refined faster than light star travel.
Yeah.
Boom. Okay. Now, the first thing that would come to my mind is, well, gee, that's really great. That's fantastic. But who the hell's going to be the cartographer about all this? How are we going to know where to go? For example, let's say we blast out beyond the solar system and we don't know it, but there's a moving black hole out there, which would really be bad if you encountered that, right? A black hole.
Yes.
And it's believed that black holes, in fact, do move throughout the universe. Am I correct, Mark?
You are.
Dantonio?
You are.
So
there's a certain
how
number.
would we go about getting a good usable map of the cosmos? Let's say 1,000 light years around our sun.
Well, what we've done right now is we've created quite a nice map of 1,000 light years around our sun or so. We certainly know several hundred light years around our sun. We know the dust that might be there. We know these other things. And if we were to have this technology, we would also first concern ourselves with near-Earth objects, because we would be testing it by going from here to the moon first, and then from here to Mars, and then from here to, say, Pluto or Saturn or Jupiter. But to do that, we'd have to go and, pop in at a location near Jupiter. Well, once we pop in there, what guarantee do we have that we're not going to strike another small moon we don't know? The same kind of guarantee we had knowing that we could put Cassini through the rings without hitting a single particle. It's because it's so big and expansive that the chances are small. There's always a chance that, bam, you're going to get squashed out of existence. But that's because our technology is limited. An advanced species might have better ways to look at entry points back into the universe and see what's there and say, that's viable, oh, that's not viable. There's a density of dust in that region that would preclude us from being able to pop in there very easily. Because as soon as they pop in, they're going to displace stuff. Okay, when they displace stuff, that could have negative consequences.
I think we're overthinking this. Doc Brown made a DeLorean, and in Time Cop, they sent the muscles from Brussels in a cart, sort of like that, in the same sort of way. So aren't we overthinking this whole thing?
We got to go back to the future, Marty. Yeah. Do you know what this means?
Come on.
It's your children. They're assholes.
What are we, crazy dog? Not you, your kids. Remember that? That's funny. I just gave away the ending of the movie.
That's okay.
I think that we're gonna have to overthink it though in order to implement it. And and Don, I don't know if this is where you wanted to go with this tonight, but so I apologize if I'm kind of.
Hey, I'm open, pal.
Hey, we're
okay.
open.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't want to like step on any agenda you might have had.
Hey,
you
Mark, know me well enough to know that if this was uncomfortable for me, I would say something.
Oh, I don't think it's uncomfortable. I think you're enjoying the heck out of it, from what I can see. But it might not have been what you wanted to talk about. So anyway, that's
Pornhub.
Yeah.
That's what you wanted to see. Okay, If Vicky needs to know where you are, no, she'll know.
All the kids I hear are now at X Hamster.
I don't even know what that is. I'm too old, I guess.
It's one that exists.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, how do you know about it?
I was gonna say, bro.
So you're talking a hamster with duct tape? Is that where we're going?
No.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh my gosh.
Richard Gere. I see.
Richard Gere. Yes.
That's a gerbil. Don't screw up your fucking.
So right before we got to go to break, do you want to put a math number, a percentage attached to the prediction of it's actually alien, like Loeb did, because he's at 40% now?
Yeah,
which I find highly suspect that a guy that smart would be willing to put a prediction, a percentage of a prediction. I don't know.
Yeah. See, here's the thing. Okay. This came to us. I know we got like a minute left here. This came into us along the plane of our solar system. If this is our solar system right here, okay, it came in along the plane of our solar system, sort of, kind of. Okay, it was a little above rather than leaving a little below. But wait, our solar system's on a 62-degree angle to the galactic disk, okay? So how did it go into our plane of our solar system? Because sideways, it could still come through the plane of our solar system. So from this side, it did. It was coming toward me in a way, that way. So that's how it did, because the galactic disk is here. So that said, that explains why it crossed at the plane of our solar system. But because it came from that galactic disk region, all bets are off. We haven't seen an interstellar object like this because we've only seen 2 others before this.
Now, I could be wrong, because the chat folder over here is all screwed up. I'm not getting.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Okay. Well, I think it's time for a break. Is it time for a break?
Absolutely.
Then let's take that break. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dark Matters Radio. Tonight, a full and far-ranging discussion on who knows what. And we're going to be back after these words, so stick around.
Who knows?
Hold on to your seats, Cosmic Explorers. KGRA Digital Broadcasting, the unrivaled #1 source for raw, uncensored paranormal and UFO talk radio, has just unleashed a sizzling online merch store. Stay cosmic on the move with accessories, rugged phone cases, vibrant yoga mats, and notebooks perfect for jotting down UFO sightings. Ignite your obsession with the unexplained through bold, exclusive gear that demands attention. Kicking off with the Supernova, the store launches 2 heart-pounding collections, KGRA Digital Broadcasting and Bishop James Long. Every item you grab helps power the network and its groundbreaking shows. Stand with the truth seekers, act fast, score your stellar swag, and join the uprising today.
From Iraq and Afghanistan, our brave warriors are coming home, wounded. Some with wounds you can see, some with wounds you can't see. Wounded Warrior Project was created to support our men and women coming off the battlefield. Please help carry these warriors the rest of the way home. Get involved at woundedwarriorproject.org.
MUFON is the voice of thousands of like-minded people who want to see change. We speak up against UFO secrecy. We engage governments and agencies around the world on the topic. We share information with the public through our journal, website, newsletter, social media, and even our own TV channel. When you join MUFON, you add your voice to the cause. Few things are more important in our time than understanding the UFO question. Join MUFON. Find your friends.
And obviously, I think we are back. Are we back, guys? I think we are.
I'm back.
Well, I don't know if Mark's back, but
he'll be back.
He'll be back.
It takes longer for him in the bathroom these days. So
I wanted to point something out, but I have to, I guess, wait for Mark. When you're talking about these particles that you surround the ship with,
the PIM particles,
yeah, the KK particles.
Oh,
yeah. The
not to be mistaken with Kathleen Kennedy at Disney.
Very true. That would be a very bad analogy. Because I don't know if there's any woke spaceships. Oh, good, there he is. I wanted to tell you, Mark. And we talked about those Kaluza-Klein particles, and one of the reasons that it all makes sense. Everything from the shape to the visual effects that we see when these things move. Everything in the annals of the reports are all accounted for by this process. Okay. So we look at a UFO. This happens to be the sport model that we make in our model shop. Sport model. Okay. And this object here.
Does Bob Lazar get a piece of that, Mark?
No, he doesn't.
Okay.
But what's that shape like? It's round, right?
Yeah.
Okay. UFOs have primarily been round throughout history or triangular. Okay. There's a reason for that. The reason is because of the nature of how you work when you're going from 4 dimensions to 5. It all makes sense because inside this UFO, okay, you have to make those particles that surround your ship. How do you do that? Using a particle accelerator. And what shape are accelerators? Rings. Okay. The ring at CERN is 22 miles in size. It's huge. But we could make a 30-foot one in the future, perhaps. And alien beings have figured it out, I'm sure. And so they're safe inside here. And now,
well,
why
Mark,
would you?
I gotta say, I am the furthest thing from a physicist. I don't know squat, other than some popular references. But the Hadron Super Collider, I have been distrustful of that since they premiered the damn thing. And I have had, and it may sound simple, may sound adolescent, but I have been fearful of them opening up rifts that could not be closed. Now, that may sound stupid and dumb and uninformed, but where do you come down on that?
I think that the energies used by the Large Hadron Collider are not energies that are high enough to cause any rifts, because we're talking about it uses a massive amount of energy, but it's also very deep underground. And to open up a rift, you would have to create these particles and keep them running. But they don't do that. They run, they make a collision, and then they stop, and then they do it again, right? But if in order to do that, they're going to end up making like, I'd say, first of all, the whole site uses like 200 megawatts of energy, which isn't really a lot of electrical power.
Well, I wouldn't want to get zapped with 200 megawatts.
No, that's true. And there's a history of someone who actually did. They put their head into an electron beam.
Right.
I believe he didn't die right away.
Well, regarding that spot, did they have to build a specific power generation station for that, or was there enough just to use what was there?
Oh no, they had to build their own power supply. Absolutely. Right. It uses a lot of energy to do what it does. But the thing about this is that it's sort of like a one shot, then it's done, and one shot, and it's done. It's not like running 24/7, and so there's no danger of opening up anything as far as we can tell so far. We're nowhere near the capability of doing that kind of thing, So right. I think that, what we're talking about though is just having a lot of energy to accelerate these protons at high speed, and at low temperatures they're literally they have these super cooled magnetic sheaths going around. It's a tunnel that guides the protons around, and that's the problem with this shape. Protons don't want to go circular. They want to go straight. But you're forcing them to go in a circle, and when you force them to go in the circle, even with supercooled magnets like at the LHC, Large Hadron Collider, they give off a certain kind of radiation called synchrotron radiation, and that's bad. That's bad for us. Now, there's in the annals of UFO lore, there's cases where people said they touched the UFO, and what happened to them?
They got burned.
They got burned. Okay. There's other people that have scars on them from apparent exhaust. Okay.
Right.
Well, was it exhaust, or was it the dispensing location where these particles are coming out? And they got struck by these high particles coming out. Right. So the thing is, this shape and the triangular shape, the cigar shape, all those shapes, you can have a circular accelerator within it. And because we see various different kinds of UFOs on this planet, my contention is that a number of species have found us and got to the point in their science and technology where they could go out interstellar. And the reason is because I think that one of the templates the universe got going for it is that it creates life. Okay, that's the populated universe is that book I wrote, and it says that the subtext is life in the universe may very well be the rule, not the exception, and it has to do with the amount of carbon in the universe. It's fourth most abundant element in the entire universe, next to oxygen, helium, and then hydrogen. So oxygen and carbon are going to have a love affair. Okay, so that love affair, yes. Oxygen and carbon. Of course you did that. Okay. Yes.
I was waiting for it.
I was trying hard not to show you just helium. Okay. Hydrogen, helium,
that's helium.
Oxygen, carbon. And if we take those, okay, yeah, see, I consciously was saying,
yes.
Helium.
I'm not going to show
helium.
you.
That's right.
I was trying very hard not to show you just helium. But the fact is, because those elements are so plentiful, it seems like life based on carbon is a surefire thing. Okay. Utilization of oxygen is a surefire thing. So oxygen in our atmosphere for 2.5 billion years means that any creatures within, say, 2 billion light years of us, okay, which is already way out of our galaxy, they could have seen our planet coming a mile away. Stephen Hawking, remember, he said, let's keep our heads down, let's hide, I don't want them to see us. Okay, don't let them see us.
Spend time with strippers. Yeah,
don't let them see us. Right?
Well, after over a century of television and radio, the old television signals and radar, which blast out into space, at one point Earth in the radio spectrum was like a star.
Yeah.
Now, I think we've dimmed quite a bit.
Well, it's going on like 150 years, 150 light years. You know,
by the way,
who knows what the hell is out there at 100?
That's what Stephen Hawking was talking about. It's called the dark forest theory, that you just stay out of the view of others and you watch what.
Yeah, you just
stay
watch
in your
right.
lane. Yeah.
The trouble is, and with all deference to Stephen Hawking, who was probably one of the greatest minds on our planet, he wasn't correct about that because, and he probably knew this, but starting 2.5 billion years ago, we had something called the GOE, the Great Oxidation Event. Life in our ocean started pooping oxygen. You're breathing plankton poop is why you're here. Okay. It's a waste product from those creatures. And so the oxygen build up in our atmosphere. Oxygen doesn't want to stay. It'll dive back into the planet's surface, bond with iron, make iron oxides and rust and all kinds of things, given the opportunity. However, if we had an oxygen level that stays constant, it means it's being replenished by something, and that something is life. So we have a level of oxygen that hasn't changed. And that,
it has, Mark.
It has. It's gone up and down. That's correct.
At one point, there were over 20% oxygenated atmosphere, correct?
Well, we're at 21 now, but it used to be
even higher than that. I was
33.
thinking the gigantic insects. And,
Yep, 33%, you know, and so we had large insects. Dinosaurs got much more energy by taking a single breath than large elephants do today, for instance. So yes. But the oxygen level stayed relatively constant, and it climbed, it diminished, throughout our history. That said, an alien species, say 10,000 light years away, and you're say the center of the galaxy, an alien species that's matured would be looking for planets that could support carbon-based life, just like we are. Why not? And the reason that they look means they have to be curious. Now, what about curiosity? Now, that's another thing I've dealt with. Every creature on this planet, every single creature, all right, is imbued with curiosity. It's a template created by the universe. Life has curiosity. At a certain level, all life wants to find what's over there. What's that over there? Now, maybe it's food, but I'm curious. I want to go see. All right, whatever it is. So that curiosity drives development. And so an alien species would also be curious if they're based on carbon. If they're based on carbon, they use oxygen. And so what are they going to do? They're going to look for a planet that has a steady supply of oxygen. And that's Earth. So we're a brilliant blue beacon in the universe. And we stand out like a sore thumb. Sorry, Stephen Hawking. So that means that creatures would come here from all points, because there's an all points bulletin on Earth saying life's here, we're here. And so they might come here. They might show up in a circular ship. They might show up in a triangular ship, which I have back there. They might show up in a cigar shape, a sphere shape. It doesn't matter. From their perspective, they would develop the technology to travel between the stars. And the only way to do it in any kind of economical, cheap, efficient fashion is by doing it interdimensionally, by going from 4 to the 5th dimension. Now that means we have to look at physics different from how we do. You want to do that? You want to do that? This is what we've been doing all this time in these 4 dimensions. You want to do that? You got to start going into string theory and seeing the universe differently. You don't look at a proton as a particle. You look at it as an energy string, an infinitesimally small string. Imagine everything's moving in the universe, it's vibrating. And this isn't fully accurate, but it's the protons going back and forth like that. If you stop it at this end of its travel, okay, and then you stop it at that end of its travel, what's in between is the path it took. That little bit of energy, that's the string, okay? So if we look at just the values of the energies of the strings, we can quantify a particle like a proton that we're calling a particle. All right. So we can actually look at protons, electrons, muons, gluons, and so on. We can look at them as energy. And therefore, that affords us the ability to look at other dimensions, because we will require them to use these other dimensional characteristics of the universe that might exist. And there's one very promising string theory variation called Randall-Sundrum 1, RS1. And that's the one that allows for this fifth dimension. And that fifth dimension is, like I said, highly warped. The farther in you go, the smaller the universe gets around you. But it takes a lot of energy to go far in. Now, if a ship is here on the Earth and it's using that technology, when is it vulnerable? Why were there crashes? Well, if they're only going to go into that fifth dimension a tiny, tiny bit because they're in our atmosphere, all right, the entry points are much more critical at that point, aren't they? So they have to come back in just a few feet from where they were. To our eyes, we'd see something moving really fast across the sky. That's moving thousands of miles an hour. It did a right angle turn.
Well, now you said something that I've got a comment on. And in my paper on disclosure,
yeah,
I submitted a theory on what a lot of those crashes could have been. Look, if extraterrestrials have come here, I am convinced beyond any doubt that more than one group have. And there's no written law or rule that states all these different groups have to get along with each other.
That's true.
Okay. And some of these, I maintain, were not flying from Zeta Reticuli coming to Earth and suddenly crashing.
Yeah.
They may have been combat losses.
I can buy that. I can understand. That's it'd be silly to say that's impossible. All right. I mean, that's obviously not something that would be something we can doubt. It certainly probably has happened. You know,
and if it has, that is another reason that the powers that be in the government or wherever this secret resides would not want the public to know about it.
That's true. That's true. I don't doubt that either.
So let's say that a lot of the crashes have happened because of that. I really don't go for the they crashed because our technology messed with their technology and they couldn't handle it and they crashed. Like, well, gee, so you couldn't deal with that, but you could deal with bending space and time travel and all this stuff. I don't buy that. But let's say a certain percentage of them crashed in America. Let's say 20 crashed in America and they all got covered up. It's a big, big world, right? And they're not just coming here for hamburgers. They're going around the world to go check stuff out. So you would think that possibly a couple of hundred more crashed around the world. Let's just say, because if 20 crashed here,
yeah,
a lot of them would crash there. Do you find it highly unlikely, especially in third world countries, maybe not Borneo and places where it's hard to get around, but in third world countries and stuff, that they would have the same capabilities of cover up that America does to cover all those up as well, to the extent that supposedly we have?
Humans have a great deal of trouble keeping their mouths shut. So any secrets will eventually come out. So
well, I just meant the debris and all that, right? Because supposedly at Roswell, we went out there on all fours and we cleaned it all up. Well, let's take that same thing in Australia or in the middle of China or wherever where people were, right? And it is an interesting thought experiment that, well, gee, if enough of these things have been crashing to still not have the physical evidence of some sort, right?
Yeah.
Seems kind of far-fetched to me if the crashes were as commonplace, which is the wrong term, but it seems kind of far-fetched to me.
Yeah, I understand that. But one thing is, with any technology, no matter how advanced, there can be breakdowns in that technology.
Oh, sure.
Because it is just technology.
Yeah.
Dependent on the conditions of the universe where you are at that time. So could something have happened? Yeah, why not? I mean, here's the thing. When you're transitioning from that fifth dimension down to the four again, okay, that transition is critical. And during that time, there's a lot that can go wrong. Keep in mind, by the way, that what they probably do is they do this. They go back and forth between the fifth dimension and the fourth dimension very, very rapidly, and they oscillate at what we call a frequency, a high frequency.
Right.
For this reason, they could be in the deep ocean and just sit there and take a nap. okay, because they're going back and forth so fast that the ocean pressure is inconsequential. They're neither here nor there for any amount of time. The Titan was crushed in like a hundredth of a millisecond or a tenth of a millisecond, okay, when it was trying to visit the Titanic.
Right.
That is like an eternity of time compared to the frequency that these things would be oscillating at. So all they need to do that is to keep particles circling around inside their reactor here, inside the ring, and to circle those particles around there, they just need a power source. That power source may very well be like a fusion reactor, which, by the way, Lawrence Livermore is working on. So that's another thing. So as far as the dangers of shifting back and forth, there are dangers. What if the reactor or the nuclear reactor that's powering and generating these particles breaks down? It doesn't have to break down for long for the ship to be like poof, imploded in the bottom of the ocean. It doesn't have to break down for long in the fifth dimension for the forces of that compressed universe to obliterate the ship. The protection gone as soon as the breakdown occurs. So one of the problems is that we don't have any knowledge at all of how we would actually moderate such particle generation. We don't have any idea how ships would crash using this. We just suspect. Well, if using this methodology is pretty dangerous. They don't have engines, so there's no fuel to blow up, so to speak. But maybe they don't blow up. Maybe they crash because they see. One of the things about this is that when these things throw out these particles, what else comes out with them is what are called micro black holes. And the micro black holes surround the ship, and they eat a little bit of the atmosphere, a little bit of the light coming to your eye. And when that happens, the other thing they eat are the gravitons of the Earth itself, trying to hold it down to the Earth. So we've heard many stories about UFOs that seem to be like fluttering leaves on the wind, just kind of fluttering around. And that makes sense when we think about this technology, because there is no up or down for creatures that are sitting in the middle of this system. They're just going from point A to point B. They don't care what it looks like when it's going. Okay, kind of a thing. They could be any orientation they want. All right. So they don't allow gravity to reach their ship because they're eating Earth gravitons. Okay, the same way that they're sending out these Kaluza-Klein gravitons to pull them into this fifth dimension. It's a complicated bit of science for us here. We don't really have a good handle on it, but we do know that the concept of the Kaluza-Klein graviton and Kaluza-Klein particle was first postulated in the 1920s.
Well, Mark, you've talked about this before on this show. Excuse me, on this show.
I have.
Is anybody currently that you're aware of actively pursuing this?
Actually, yes. I think that the Atlas experiment at CERN, it's one of its tasks. You can look up the white paper on the CERN website, look for Kaluza-Klein particles, and you'll see the white paper on CERN about the Atlas detector they put in, that in part, one of its tasks is to find the Kaluza-Klein particles. So they are looking for them. Okay. They're looking for them. And there's promising results. Okay. Now, the other thing is there's a number of physicists and other scientists, astrophysicists around the world that have started to join in this hunt. Now,
Weinstein's one of them because I watch and read his stuff.
What about DARPA? Do you think DARPA's working on it?
Oh, are you kidding me? DARPA's all over this.
They invented it.
Yeah, they're like, Kaluza and Klein work for us. No, I don't know. but no, I do know this too. Now, one of the things, and I think it's the same thing. Just this past year, Avi Loeb came out and said that he thinks that aliens may be traveling interdimensionally. Now, could it be that, I know Avi, okay, and we've never talked. We kind of talked about this actually once together, briefly, but I think it's possible that he may have done some research and said, "Hey, this is as good as any other idea." Sure. Maybe they are. So
with the CERN, they're spinning it around, And in the UFO, some people have touched it and got burnt. Some people have gotten shot with some stuff. We know that guy had all those spots on his belly and all that.
Yeah.
So how do they deal with the byproduct as they're spinning it around? How do they deal with that? I forget the name of it, but that byproduct.
Synchrotron radiation.
Right.
Okay, well, here's the thing. Synchrotron radiation can be shielded. And so they're here.
Right.
Okay, they're in the middle, and this is the outer ring, and the particles are being dispensed outward, and the radiation goes every which way. If you're trying to take a proton and make it curve, you're going to get synchrotron radiation coming out all along its path, every direction.
All right.
So what you do is you shield your central core, so the synchrotron radiation cannot reach you. Okay, or maybe there's a way to engineer a physical body to absorb a certain amount of synchrotron radiation. I don't know. I think they probably just shield for it. That's my thought. And so, but that is something they would have figured out. And they wouldn't care about what's outside with like a little scout ship like this, because they weren't planning on stopping to have tourists come up and touch them,
Right.
So
what's going on?
Yeah, it's like, can I touch you? Sure, come on up, kid.
I'm human. We're just naturally curious. That's
so
why they call me Mittens.
we've been asked a question, and this is an interesting question. What do you surmise are the properties of the fifth dimension that make it stand out from the other four?
Okay, well, it's a different dimension altogether.
Right, but still, when you're blinking like this, the properties of one are going to be different than the other, I would assume.
Yeah, the properties of the fifth dimension in Randall Sunderland 1 are that fifth dimension is a location, if you call it that, and I don't want to confuse people, but it's in the same exact place you're sitting, and that makes it worse to think about. Okay, but the fifth dimension, the transition is such that the dimension is a highly warped dimension, and it's bordered on the other end by something called the Planck membrane.
What about the age of Aquarius?
The age of Aquarius is great. The Helix Nebula is there. It's a planetary nebula. It's the closest planetary nebula to us. It's massive in the sky. I've taken lots of pictures of it.
This is the age of Aquarius.
Yeah, it's that's the fifth dimension for you, man. They also got another song called "Up, Up and Away."
That's right. In my beautiful balloon.
Yeah.
So the question then really comes down to what's the architecture of this fifth dimension. The Randall Sunderland 1 theory talks about this dimension. It's highly warped, bordered on one end by our membrane, our four dimensions. In string theory, our universe is called a membrane, and there's others that are dimensional to us. Okay, and that's like this fifth dimension is highly warped. The farther
those are called brain worlds.
Brain worlds, yes, exactly. That's right.
They're called Brandenburg worlds.
The Brandenburg, the Brandenburg worlds, and not concertos. Okay, yeah. The dimension is so warped that the farther in you go, the smaller the universe becomes around you. So that's the architecture. It takes a lot of energy to climb that hill in there. So as we get better at this, we might go in a little bit. I could see us, taking a 5-day trip to Pluto early on, maybe 10-day trip to Pluto, not 10-year trip. Okay. And so that's how it would start. We'll send a probe to Pluto. It might get there in, say, 5 or 7 days. Oh, wow, look at Pluto. Sputnik Planitia. Woo, we saw it again, And then we'll travel all over the solar system with that, and that'll last for probably 50 to 75 years. And then we'll refine it. We'll refine our energies and be able to get farther into that fifth dimension. And then we'll be able to jump out. So interstellar travel isn't around the corner. It's actually quite a distance from us because if we go to Alpha Centauri using this technology, once we can go into that fifth dimension and far enough, generate enough energy, maintain our ship's cohesiveness, okay, once we can do that, then Alpha Centauri is not 10,000 years away like it is today for any of our ships we ever had. Okay, don't cry, Don. It's okay. It's all right.
I'm sad.
I know.
I want the aliens today. Come on.
No, but wait. If they're using this technology, Alpha Centauri, okay, if we can get sufficiently into that fifth dimension, is only 20 minutes from here. No lie. Because we would go in a little bit distance and then pop out to an entry point partway there and keep doing that jump. So we'd make several hops to get there. And each time, Alpha Centauri would be getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger in our viewport as we're looking out the window. Because all it changes for us is the view out the window.
So what is the power source? Because we don't have thrusters or anything. And this was a question from the chat. Yeah. Wouldn't it take a whole hell of a lot of power to do this?
Yes. When we talk about the Alcubierre drive, we were talking about warping space. We needed the equivalent of the massive Jupiter converted to energy to be able to fold space, to actually do that. That thing where you could, fold up the corners and jump across the point and then open it up again and you're there.
There's your check done.
Yeah, that's right. So what that is, though, is a four-dimensional process. That's in the 4 dimensions. If you're going to use this 5th dimension, then you're talking about moving out of the 4 dimensions. Now we get out to the 4 dimensions. Okay, how do we get there? Well, the power source is a fusion reactor, possibly, that can generate these particles. And we generate enough of those particles, and we don't know how to do that yet. The CERN is only just starting to do this now. Okay. And we generate enough of those particles, and then we can, if we surround the ship with them, they don't live in our 4 dimensions. They come from and they share the 5th dimension. Okay. So that means that they will tug us into this 5th dimension. And as they do, we'll be in this 5th dimension. And then as we moderate the particles downward, we'll end up back in our 4 dimensions. Now, how do we decide where we come back in our universe? That's a black box. We don't know how to do that yet. Okay, at all.
Well, it's one of the theories is that they create with the energy wormholes that take it from one point to the other. They don't actually move.
Yeah, that's a 4-dimensional construct.
4-dimensional. So what I want to ask you now is what I've been wanting to ask you for a while is, you sound like you are more of a, when it comes to unified theory, that you're more of a geometric unity theorist rather than string theory.
How dare you? No.
Well, I'm that way because I've found that string theory has problems, whereas this unified theory that they're trying to push forward right now, but it's not going to make any waves until Witten is gone, because he's got a stranglehold on physics.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. Okay, my feelings are just based on some suppositions that I have and some knowledge I have about the process of this 5th dimensional travel motif. And the guy that started me on this journey was Bob Schroeder. Okay. Robert Schroeder, friend of mine, he wrote a book called Solving the UFO Enigma. And in it, he details this theory in a more practical sense using Randall-Sundrum 1 and so forth. And it's wonderful, exceptional. And Bob talks in a way that probably you might not understand fully. I think he's getting better at it. But I told him I was going to take it and popularize this because I think I can bring it to people in a way that they'll understand the basics of how this can work. Now, do we know every nuance? No, we don't. None of us do. Not even Bob. Okay. Not even not an Avi Loeb, not a Stephen Hawking would even know. Not even a Kip Thorne. I sat with Kip. Remember he did the Interstellar. He was a special effects guy. He's actually an astrophysicist on Interstellar. And I sat with him. We talked about black holes and how they transmit information. And it was a time travel talk where he said, well, we could be going into the black hole and see ourselves coming out of a corresponding white hole.
Yeah.
Okay. And that process was something that Hawking denied was possible. And they shared letters back and forth saying, Kip gave him his argument for it. And Kip listened to Hawking's argument against it. And Kip read Hawking's article and said, oh, you're right, Stephen. And then Stephen read Kip's article and said, oh, you're right, Kip. So they swapped positions. So what that shows you is that even the brightest minds on our planet don't have all the answers. And, I'm probably got some details wrong about that interaction, but I just was summarizing. But the point is, it's really interesting. And so when we come back to how we can do this, that power source comes down to this, like I said, a fusion reactor, possibly. a fusion reactor. There may be another power source beyond it, but I think the power of the sun is a pretty hefty power source. And just so you know, at CERN, they're looking for these Kaluza-Klein particles over here, come back across, go across the Atlantic, go across the United States, go to San Francisco, go to Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. Okay. And one of my observatories is on the land belonging to a laboratory physicist. And in that laboratory, they have created a fusion, and they were able to slam slam hydrogen atoms together. Boom. Hey, we fused, and it was over. Then a couple years later, the milestone occurred. They were able to make a sustained reaction. Now, the sun is creating sustained reactions every fraction of a second. Lots and lots of it. We don't want that kind of power source. We want a power source. We want something coming back, and we want to get a net plus energy out of it. Well, we put way more energy into this process than we got out, but it was sustained. So milestone number 2 of many, or like 1.9935, whatever. There's going to be a lot of subdivisions within the milestones. So let's say milestone 2, sustained reaction, and they got it now. Okay, so the next one would be sustained reaction and move closer to the break-even point, where we get just, as much energy came out as we put in. Yay, break even. The break-even point is going to be a massive undertaking, but they're working on it at Lawrence Livermore over here in San Francisco. Meanwhile, in CERN, the Atlas detector is looking for those Kaluza-Klein particles. Marry these two together once they get good at it, and they're going to have one heck of a relationship, and those technologies together will probably lead us down the path to interstellar travel.
I got another question from the chat. Didn't 3i Atlas have a change in speed that was non-gravitational?
Oh, that's from Kentucky Skywatcher.
That's
I saw that, and I meant to answer it earlier, and I still meant to answer it. Yes, actually,
we have a few to address before the end of the show.
Okay. So the thing that's interesting is Kentucky Skywatcher is correct. It showed a non-gravitational acceleration. Now, it sounds really crazy. Like, what is that? Okay. That means it has engines? No, it means it has jets. But they're not jets with engines attached. They're actually jets of material that come from ice being released from below the surface, and this material shooting out at high speed. Every comet has it. Comet Tsutshin Atlas had it. I took a beautiful photo of that. Okay. Comet Churyumov-Gerasimenko, the Rosetta lander, Philae, landed on, and the Rosetta mission orbited. We saw those jets coming out. And what was happening is the comet's surface, as it gets warm, starts to sublimate the ices. Now, sublimate is not melt. Sublimate means go right from ice to vapor. Okay. There's no liquid form in the middle there. So it just goes right to vapor. That's what sublimation means. Carbon dioxide does that here on our planet in our air. It doesn't go to liquid carbon dioxide first. It goes from dry ice to carbon dioxide directly. That's sublimation. And on the surface of a comet, when that happens, if there's a gas pocket inside, right, a collection of, say, carbon monoxide in a pocket, and it's trapped by ices all around, as soon as the ice melts above it, you're going to get, that stuff's going to shoot out because you got zero pressure outside and a lot of pressure inside, at least some pressure inside that wants to push it out. So that carbon monoxide will shoot out and you'll get a jet. How do we see it? Well, in all cases so far, well, some cases, I should say, most cases, as that jet comes out, it's taking with it some of the dirt that's accumulated on the comet over the years and dust. And this makes the comet's dust tail. That's why
my damn detector has been going off all the time.
That is absolutely right. Right? So the dust tail is made by these little jets. So now that we see a tail around Comet 3i Atlas, we can say, okay, by going around the sun, enough of that nucleus, the material around the center, has melted to allow the jets to start really working in earnest. And now we got a real tail from it. Okay. And so that tail is being left behind like Pigpen, walking along, leaving behind a dust ball, dust clouds. Okay. And so as the comet's moving, it's leaving this dust in its orbit, and that stays there. And it kind of circulates in the orbit of the comet. And we have a 93 million mile, 186 million mile orbit diameter. And as we do that, as we orbit, we may eventually pass through part of the tail if it drifts this way. I'm not sure. Okay. But it's going to be 720 times the distance of the moon that when it passes us at closest approach. So we may never see that. But when we pass through a comet's tail, that's when we get meteor showers. That's where they come from. You know.
So at 7 billion years old, would you say it's a good assumption that the mass of this thing was far larger when it started on its trip than it is now?
Depends if it passed stars. Okay, it may very well have passed other stars, and if it did, it would lose some of its mass. Right now, the mass is estimated to be like 30+ billion tons. You know, and that's a hefty rock in the center, along with all the ice. That's probably a rocky core. Most comets are a rocky core surrounded by ice. You know, as we can tell. And that ice is everything from, ammonia ices, methane ices, carbon dioxide ices, water ices. It's all kinds of different types of ice. And we also see organic compounds, things called tholins, which, another talk. But this whole thing is that the complex chemistry of comets makes them very, very interesting to us. But when we look at comets, we also see that they sometimes display different characteristics. This one is very different, and primarily because it came from the galactic disk, probably, and is so old. When it finally entered our solar system, it came in with an overabundance of carbon dioxide, and of course, as you mentioned, Don, this nickel atoms that were around it. But I think the thought right now is that this nickel carbonyl is something that trapped the nickel atoms and was released at 100 Fahrenheit, and then the iron came later at 200 Fahrenheit. And so when we look at all comets, we see a nickel iron, Ni versus Fe, nickel iron ratio, and the nickel iron ratio early on was massively large because the nickel dominated, nickel over iron, so the larger number was on top. And with iron creeping up, that ratio came down as it got closer to the sun and started to rise in temperature. All interesting stuff. And again, this stuff keeps me up at night, Yeah.
I have another question that came from a phone call I got from somebody.
Okay.
And when I mentioned that because of the technology that we have now, we're identifying things that we couldn't easily identify or hard to identify before. And this person, who considers himself quite the smart person, said, well, you know what? The majority of this stuff is always found by amateurs and not by the professionals. So even the stuff that we're finding now is generally found by amateurs first. Is that true?
Not always, no. But I will say this. There are some very prolific comet seekers and comet hunters. One of them is David Levy. Okay, I know him. I've talked to him a couple times, but he's found many comets. And if you have nothing but time on your hands, you too can be a comet hunter. You go out with a small scope and you scan the sky. And you scan the sky. And
so is it the newer technology that has allowed this more or not?
Well, yeah, it certainly does, because you can take deeper views. Like, I took a picture of 3i Atlas when it was out near the orbit of Jupiter. Now, Jupiter was nowhere near it at the time. Jupiter was actually on the other side of the solar system at that time. But it was out about as far as Jupiter, which is 5 astronomical units away, which is 93 million miles times 5. Okay, so it's really far away. And I managed to get a picture of it, and it was a tiny little moving dash. Now, that was because I took a long time exposure.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got this little tiny dot moving a little bit in each frame, and that leaves a dash. It was very faint, but I caught it. All right. When we shoot this, next, which could be tomorrow morning early, like at, maybe 6 o'clock my time in the morning, I could be there and look at the sky at 4 a.m. at the time in our desert observatories. We might see it there, but it's interesting that this object, all right, is visible to so many people in so many ways. And the shutdown is over. So it's not the full weight of that won't be felt for another week or two or so.
Right.
But when it does, we'll be able to start looking at the comet through NASA telescopes again. But I'll tell you this, it was probably good that it wasn't out in the open when it passed by our telescopes run by NASA. Because, meaning it was behind the sun from our perspective, because there'd be a lot of people to be really mad that some silly shutdown stopped us from doing good science. So now that the shutdown will be over, we'll get NASA back going. They've got a couple of weeks to figure that out. And, you know, Borisov is going to be passing near Jupiter later, up in March, I believe, right?
So is that interstellar or not? Because I'm not getting a clear understanding on what I've seen on the web.
Oh, it's definitely interstellar. And let me tell you why we know that. That's a very good question.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Well,
Yes.
Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the answer.
Mark, your hair's still blue.
I know.
I'm an old lady. I just got a blue hair.
No.
Oh, here you go, Mark. I meant to give this to you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I really need that. Whew. I went the wrong side. I blew it. Thanks, Jerry. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, buddy.
There you go. Right. Yeah, we got to get it straight. Anyway,
I got some backwash in it, but regardless.
Ew. Yeah, well, it makes sense, but look who's underneath you.
Yes. He's always underneath me.
I'm working him like a puppet.
A ventriloquist dummy. No, where was I? Oh yes, I was over here.
You're about the
Borisov.
interstellar, the newest one.
Yeah, Gennady Borisov. That was 2I. That 2 interstellar. 1I was Oumuamua. 2I was Borisov. It came and went, and nobody really knew about it. 3I is Atlas. So Borisov is old.
All right,
but it was definitely a comet and looked like a comet. It came from a different place than Atlas did. It came from and as far as the age, it may be the same age. We don't know. But the reason we know they're interstellar is very important. First of all, the thing that makes them interstellar primarily is the trajectory and the speed. Okay. Now, things that are trapped in our solar system are either in a circular orbit, like the Earth going around the sun, and it's not even quite circular, but let's say for the record, it's almost circular. Okay. Comets, which are elliptical, they go way out as far as maybe Jupiter or Saturn, and they come back in and they orbit. Those are called periodic comets. They come back every so often. Halley's Comet every 76 years.
The 12th planet.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Never.
Okay.
But then,
I'll tell
sorry.
Brandenburg that.
Oh yeah, John Brandenburg. I'd love to hear that. Okay, but then we have, after the elliptical orbits, there's a thing called the eccentricity, and that's how circular an orbit is. If you're perfectly circular, the eccentricity is 0.
Right.
Okay. And if you're between 0 and 1, your various stages of elliptical, slightly bigger than 0 is going to be an ellipse about like that. Way bigger, almost to 1, is a really, really narrow ellipse where you got a long distance to travel. Okay. And when 3I Atlas came through, its eccentricity was over 6.
Wow.
Now that means it was not elliptical. It wasn't actually something that was constrained to orbit the sun at all. It came through using a trajectory we call hyperbolic. Now, you remember that awful class geometry you probably had in school sometime. And one of the shapes of the curves could be a hyperbola. Remember, we had ellipse, circle, we had parabolas, and we had hyperbolas, which are another one. And they looked like this. They were like, whoop, they were like a weird shape that didn't actually ever get bounded at either end. It was just a boundless curve, like a parabola. Okay. Well, but it was very, very shallow. And that is exactly what we're seeing here with 3I Atlas. And we're seeing it come through at a speed of 100, and it's more than this now, but when we first started seeing it come in the solar system, it was already at 134,000 miles per hour. Now, you might say, well, things in space move fast. They do. However, if you have a comet in our comet cloud called the Oort cloud, that's OORT, okay, when those get dislodged and move into our solar system and we start to see a new comet come in, the maximum speed they can have is far less than 134 miles per hour, 34,000 miles per hour. So this thing came through at a blistering speed compared to the most fast that a comet in our solar system could travel. So it was outpacing anything that we would have in our solar system. So that's another reason we know it's interstellar. And because of its speed coming through, it's coming through with so much energy that it's going to pass right by the sun, bend a little, and head on out. So that's how we know they're interstellar. That's how we knew Borisov was interstellar.
Okay.
And we didn't even catch Oumuamua until it was leaving. Okay. It's like,
Right.
hey, look at what almost could have hit us. Don't tell anybody. That's something you would hide from the public, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let them think they get it tomorrow when they don't. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So you see, so it's really interesting how this 3i Atlas has taken on a life of its own, and we have to look at it. I think it's a comet on that scale. You said that, Avi Loeb said it's 40%.
Yeah.
Okay. In my view, I'm going to say less than 10%. And I was saying less than 20% not too long ago, because I started to see as he could. Now, I'm not sure if he was confused with a comet's antitail or not, because an antitail in a comet, all right, where the tail looks like it's in front of the comet. I've taken pictures of comets like that. Comets will sometimes show antitails. What are they? Are they actually in front of the comet? No, they're not. See, when a comet's making a curved path like this, coming at you like this, okay, it's spewing this material out behind it. And at a certain point, okay, it's going to come and start curving. And as it curves, okay, coming towards you or away from you, you might see that far distant tail in front of the comet, apparently, but it's a perspective effect because the comet's tail path is curved, okay, as it's coming in. And so at a certain point, in the comet's here, you might see the tail here, and the comet's here, and you're here, looking like where my head is. And so, and if the comet's coming this way, you might, or this way, you might think that the comet is actually got a tail in front of it, when in fact you're just looking at the millions of miles distant dust tail that's long behind it, but just in perspective appears to be in front of it. Right. And that's because we're not comfortable with this 2D representation of the night sky that we see. We don't recognize, I mean, we are comfortable. That's what we're comfortable with. We're not comfortable with the fact that it's a 3D universe.
Right.
And that's why people see this tail in front of the comet and say, oh, no, it has a tail in front of it. Comets don't do that. Yeah, they do quite often, actually.
All right. Very good. Excellent. Good information.
Bill Skywatcher's in the back yelling numbers at us. Do you know what that's about?
Yeah, we're just going to keep going if you want.
Yeah.
I want to hear from Don. I want to talk
I
about
think our cutoff time is 54, right?
Yes.
Well, we're close.
Well, then I'm going to shut up because I've been
a minute. Yeah, we got
much.
less than a minute. Well, Mark, as always, my friend, damn, it's really a treat for me personally to have you come on, because you have what appears to be a very firm grasp on a lot of this.
An
now,
endless well.
that could be, I could be wrong, but that's just
well, we got to have him on because we have no one else to go to talk about this kind of stuff.
There you go.
Come on.
Don couldn't find a guest. Just get that guy again.
No. There's plenty of guests, but it's all happy horse shit compared to you. So
it's okay. Sometimes happy horse shit is what people want, isn't it?
God bless Sam and Dean Winchester. That's all I can say.
Happy birthday to the United States Marine Corps. I'm getting ready to do a show with a bunch of Marines right after this.
Nice.
We're going to be talking about.
Is that going to be on video?
It's going to be on YouTube. Yes.
Video. Going to be on video.
Yeah, because the guy that I work with is black, and he never says video. He says, "Yo, man, put it on video."
That's right.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, and anything in between, remember, today is the Marine Corps birthday. If you know a jarhead, tell them happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
And tomorrow, Veterans Day. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great pleasure. We'll see you next time. And once again, Mark Dantonio, you're a mensch, buddy. You're a mensch.
I had a great time. Thank you. Oh, I did it again. I'm trying to get it. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Gary.
You're welcome.
God bless Sam and Dean Winchester.